So here we are, 4 years on from the referendum, only 6 months until the end of transition. And it seems some people really don't know how they're going to be working from January onwards. Now, unusually, I'm talking not to another Brit in the EU or an EU citizen in the UK, but to Jayne, who is a British national living in the UK, but your work is across the EU. So Jayne, can you just tell me where you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm based in Northumberland, quite near Newcastle, and I'm a freelance software engineer. And before I went into software engineering, I did modern languages at university. So I have two skill sets, and I found a good way to use both was to work on projects that are often in Europe, where I can deploy my technical skills, which are quite niche, and my European languages. And I think both points combined have won me work where I otherwise might have faced too much competition for it. Because Newcastle has an airport and really good communications to Europe, it's often easier for us to go on projects there than it would be to the southwest or the southeast.
So freedom of movement has worked very well for you, allowing you to go to where the work is up until this point, obviously.
Absolutely. I'd say freedom of movement is one of the foundations of my entire career. We were told going into university, it's a good idea to study languages because we are going to be part of Europe. And because of the nature of the IT work I do is quite niche, it means that people are typically changing countries for a new project. Because a lot of the project work I would get would be in banking or telecoms or transport. And you're not always getting projects in your own locality. I mean, I have had work at Peer where I've been able to use the skills I've gained on European projects to help local customers and skill up local graduates, which is nice, but yeah,
do you think the whole of the Brexit process, do you think it's taken into account people like you?
No, they're completely overlooked. The withdrawal agreement covers British citizens who have chosen to move to a European country before Brexit happens, or the EU citizens living in Britain, but there's no provision whatsoever for people who move around in Europe, the cross-border workers, the freelancers. The government has not surveyed us. I've written on many occasions to my MP and I get no joy.
Yes, I can see you really haven't been getting any answers about how you're going to be able to continue after the end of this year. Now, I think the coronavirus crisis has made your situation even more complicated, hasn't it?
Yeah, it definitely has. I mean, in terms of the I say that the recession, it's kicking off. You have less customers want projects to be done. They're being more restrictive with the budgets. In terms of if you were on a project, you might be working remote anyway. I am working remote at the moment for a European customer, a project that would end before the Brexit transition ends. And it means if you do get a project before the transition ends, you would still have to go through all the reams of paperwork to establish yourself in that country to be able to continue on that work. And offices are closed, or they have been closed. There's massive backlogs.
So you can't even find out how you could sort out the necessary paperwork to be able to carry on doing what you do.
Yeah, and the point being, I don't know which country I would have to establish in because I wouldn't know where my next project would be before the transition is ended.
And also, well, we know from over on our side that it's not really clear how cross-border workers will be able to carry on, and a lot of it will depend on regulations in individual countries. But unfortunately for you, because of personal circumstances and the current situation, you haven't been able to even really establish yourself as in that category of a cross-border worker. Is that right?
You can to some extent, but you would depend on, if you are cross-border worker, you would depend on, say, having a permanent job in that country and you're established already as an employee going back and forward. Or you would then have to prove to the authorities you have that project and it will go on after Brexit. And in my case, it won't. So then I would be left with a gap and I couldn't prove that I've got the continuous economic activity right over the transition through to 2021. So I wouldn't necessarily qualify for a border worker permit. And as I say, the typical thing with my industry is we're changing countries for a project. So the next project on my radar would probably be in another country. So then you go through the whole process again. And if you were looking at starting work in 2021, then you're a third country national. You can't apply. You would need a blue card, or you would need to go through, say, a payroll solution with an employer based in that, or an accountant based in that European country, and you would need a work permit, which disqualifies you as a freelancer because the customers need you faster, within, say, 2 weeks a month. If you need a work permit, it can take you 3 months to get it.
It all sounds complicated, but I don't think you're untypical. I mean, in fact, we found by doing studies of British nationals living in the EU, we're a very mobile population. And, you know, that's the nature of the work market these days. And so I imagine you, like us, saw this as one big area that we could move around in and go to where the work is. And that's, it seems madness to take that away from you. Now, so give me a little bit more of a background of the situation in the area that you're in, from, you know, in terms of the economy, because your area, well, you've got Nissan, other big companies. What's happening?
Yeah, if you look at the northeast of England, if you were, you know, chasing a new project, the areas you would work in would be maybe public sector or IT services. So you're dependent on your region for the projects coming up. What's happening with the Brexit situation is, if there's a no deal, Nissan has said it is going to leave. Nissan does occasionally have IT projects where you get local consultancies or freelancers going in there. We've had De La Rue is affected by Brexit. So lots of companies are uncertain about how they are going to be dealing with the whole situation. So they're not investing, and it means less freelance projects. So I thought before this chat, I'd have a quick look at where I would have to go if I needed to get a project now. There's not many adverts out there at all. One project in Edinburgh where, because of Corona, the rates have gone down and it's not viable to do it on the rates offered, because Edinburgh is quite expensive for hotels. One possible project, which would be a 6-hour train journey from home to get there. It's probably easier to go to Europe even with the Corona happening. So, and then you get the market, which is always very competitive. There might be one project down there you could chase, but again, you're not London based, so that's a challenge.
So Jayne, for you personally, what ultimately do you see as your worst case scenario for you personally?
My worst case scenario is I've no longer got access to that European market. I can't use my niche skills, like combine my technical skills in foreign languages to pull projects in, say, banking. That's the thing, that's my unique selling point. It means if I'm then restricted to projects in Britain, or a lot of red tape to work in Europe. It means if I get a project in Europe, I might be doing that as, or trying to do it as a third country national. I have competitors from 31 other countries who are in front of me because of their freedom of movement rights. I face agencies and clients saying they don't want to work with me.
So Jayne, how do you feel about this whole situation that has been, well, forced upon you? I imagine you didn't choose it.
I think it's incredibly unfair. Even since the Brexit vote happened and we were getting closer to the supposed Brexit day between 2018 2019, the effect it had on the contract market for British contractors, I'd say it's comparable to the recession of 2008 to 2009, where there were less projects. And it means our CVs are at the bottom of the pile now. The coronavirus means there's less work. We have less possibilities to get on a project in that other European Union country to establish ourselves at least there before Brexit happens, the Brexit transition ends. So we're kind of cut off from that. It means my whole livelihood is blocked, and I'm stuck probably with British projects, and that means a lot more travel.
Yeah, I mean, on a personal level, obviously, it's tragic. But yeah. If you look at the bigger picture, it doesn't make sense at all, does it?
No, no, it doesn't. If I look at my own region, and I'm quite typical of this, when there's not enough projects here, the Geordies, we go all over the place. We would go to Europe, and now we've got this economic crisis, and that option is blocked, not just for me, but for the whole group of us. Yeah,
you need those opportunities now more than ever.
We need the half-needing option.
Yeah. Well, Jayne, thank you very much for talking to me, and I wish you luck. I know the uncertainty is horrendous, but I wish you the best of luck. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much for chatting to me.
Thank you.
Thanks.